Alrighty. Are you good to go?
I am.
Would you like to do the clap again? The little mini clap?
I do a mini clap.
Thank you so much. That was very cute.
Thank you.
Alright. Hello everyone. Welcome once again to Editing Academy. Darryl.
Laura.
And we are here, I think this is number 13.
This is number 13.
Okay, we are here to talk about Darryl's Top 20, number 13. We are just busting down this list.
I know. We're going to have to come up with a new little side project.
And the one that we're here to talk about today is one of my favorite movies. Obviously, it's on the list. Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude was directed by Hal Ashby, screenplay by Colin Higgins, starring Ruth Gordon, Bud Cort, Vivian Pickles, Cyril Cusack, Charles Tyner, and Ellen Geer. The soundtrack was by Cat Stevens. I mentioned that because it's all over this movie. It was not nominated for any Oscars, but it was nominated both Cort and Gordon for Best Actor, Best Actress at the Golden Globes. Okay.
I know I wasn't told to do a fun fact, but I know a fun fact.
Absolutely,
Can I
go
share a
for
fun fact? Ellen Geer is the daughter of Will Geer, who's the grandfather on the Waltons. And
Okay.
she's the one that played the third date. The one that
okay.
was Juliet to his Romeo.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Had to share. Just had to come out.
So, this is one of those films that was absolutely panned when it came out, but over time has started to creep on a lot of people's lists, to the point that some of the critics that panned it at the time it came out have years later penned a public apology of this movie.
That's hilarious.
I love that. And we see that a lot. Like, there's so many movies that when they're released, they just flop and become cult classics. Rocky Horror Picture Show, True
Princess
Romance,
Bride.
Princess Bride. Absolutely. These movies that come out and everybody's like, nah. But they find, primarily I think because of VHS, they find an audience later on.
Yeah.
And then now with streaming, people are going and rediscovering a lot of these movies. And I love the fact that people come back to this movie a lot. I will admit up front, this is entirely a 1970s movie. And and I can see why certain people have problems with this movie. There are some very risque things that happen in this particular movie that I can see for a 1970s audience would have been a little troubled by. And
Okay.
I'll get to that. But this is one of
The
those.
glee in your eyes as you're talking about this movie.
This movie is just the right amount of quirky for me. It really is. And while I thought Bud Cort did an excellent job, this movie does not make this movie without Ruth Gordon. It is
Absolutely.
the Ruth Gordon show from start to finish. The moment she appears on screen, she just captivates you and you can't take your eyes
She's
off
a
her.
delight.
She is. She's the kind of, like, everybody would want to hang out with this person.
Yes.
She's just such an incredible human being. There's a couple things that I want to ask questions about, but I want to get a couple things out of the way. First off, it's Hal Ashby, and we've seen him direct some other films that I don't think are as strong as this, but any Hal Ashby movie is going to be character driven, and it's all the basics that you would expect from a director are going to be covered beautifully. Like the storytelling, how you're telling the story, what you're using for scenes, the length of scenes, all of that, because it's Hal Ashby, you know is going to be really well done. It's just a question of do you connect to the story or not. I love Hal Ashby movies. This and Being There are just amazing films. Again, this is an oddity movie, so if you don't like the oddity that this movie puts out, you are not going to like this movie at all. For example, it quickly establishes that Harold has, and I am going to call it a kink, even though it's not a sexual kink, it is something that Harold does, which
brings
is
him pleasure.
yes, he likes to kind of piss off his mother by doing fake suicides.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
There are a lot of them. They're all hysterically funny to me. I love them. My favorite one is when he brings over one of the dates that his mother set him up on, and he's like saying hi from outside, and he goes and apparently lights himself on fire, but like 2 seconds later he's like, oh hi, how are you? Like,
That was my favorite as well. That's a great one.
all of those, like, and they do try to establish in the movie, they don't really answer it, but they do try to establish like why he's doing these things. Because he sees a psychiatrist, he's forced to hang out with his uncle who's in the army, like all of the religious father figure who's literally a father, like I mean that as a religious father, not a Like,
a priest.
Yes. All of these male characters, they're all very one note, but those one notes work because that's
They're
what
intended as one note.
Correct. They're supposed to be exactly that. Like the military guy is supposed to be 100% military, and he's very military, and but plays with that concept with Ruth's help.
Yeah.
When we finally do meet Ruth, because it's a little while into the film, it's like
Yes.
15, 20 minutes before we actually meet her, and then the film just starts to go off. She is charismatic, she is wonderful, she is such a free spirit of everything that she's doing. We find out very quickly she's about to turn 80, and she just has a hoot with life. She goes to funerals, as Bud does, because she likes funerals, and she will always steal a car after the funeral and just drive it somewhere just because. But as you slowly get to understand her, her focus, she doesn't focus on one thing for a very long period of time. She explores things and then will get to the point where she's like, I've mastered that, or I don't have it in me to master that, so I'm going to move on to something else. The aroma things, the sculptures that she does, all the things that she has in her house. She is just an amazing creature and full of life. And then you kind of understand why as the film progresses. She is too old to be part of, particularly when this came out, to be really part and fully embracing like the hippie counterculture of the 60s, even though she has that free spirit in her. She is just so incredibly well written, crafted, and then performed. One of my favorite characters in movies ever. I'm going to pause there and let you go.
Okay, so I agree with most of the things that you have said in that. So this movie I like, I don't love. I'm probably not the audience for it, which is funny because I love quirky and I love dark. But I think it's for the reasons that you've said. Is Ruth Gordon to me is the movie. Bud Cort does a nice job, all of the supporting characters do a nice job, and they have to set up who he is at the beginning, but that part of it is far too long for me.
Okay,
So
I can see that.
So it takes too long to get to the Ruth Gordon part, and then when she's not part of the movie, it really drops for me. So
I agree.
that's a big piece of it. So like honestly, the middle 45 minutes of this movie I really enjoy. And the beginning and kind of the end part I don't love as much. And we'll get to the end part later. But that said, I love that this is one of those movies, and you've said this before, that it knows what it is, it fully executes on what it is. And, you know, again, the people and the scenarios, there are some things that are just laugh out loud. Those don't carry me to the next one in the way that it needed to for me to love the movie.
Yeah, I don't think this was ever intended to be a straight up comedy. It's just hysterically funny in moments.
Right, and it doesn't have to be funny moments, but it's the moments, whether they be funny or poignant or whatever, the moments themselves are there, but there are not enough of them and they're too strung too far apart for
I got
me.
it. Okay.
But that said, performances are wonderful. Ruth Gordon is truly a delight in this. I love the Cat Stevens soundtrack.
Yeah, Cat Stevens was great.
I think that's really terrific too, and I like the character of Harold and who he is, and they just need a little less time setting it up. Like I get the joke, so they could spend less time on the joke.
One of the things that this film I think does incredibly well is it establishes Harold as kind of a troubled in his own head kind of kid, and he's just really longing for connection. He tries it with his mom, it doesn't really work there. She is very much focused entirely on herself. Easy example of that is when she is filling out his paperwork for the dating, and she starts out with like, well, I think you'd be like this, Harold, I think you'd be like that, Harold, you would say this, which then quickly turns into Harold's not part of this, and it's all just, I think this, and I think that.
Yes.
So mom is very much focused on her, but also give her props. If your son is constantly doing fake suicides in front of you, your nerves are going to be a little frazzled. I can understand that.
Yes.
But what I love is the counterbalance of Ruth's character when she does enter is she is not judgmental. She is 100% encouraging Harold to be whoever Harold wants to be, and frequently is pulling and pushing him to find out what that is. Because she recognizes he doesn't know, and that's okay. That like, I'm going to help you on your journey to discover who you are. So she's amazing. The movie is filled with little moments sometimes that are at odds, which I think do work. Just an easy example of that is when they're coming out of one of the funerals and they're trying to have a conversation with the priest, and then a marching band goes by. So you have this very somber moment filled with what's supposed to be very happy, and it's filled with little moments like that all throughout. I did not catch this the first couple times that I watched the movie, and I was doing a little research when I was going into this just to see what other people were thinking about it and feeling, and then I caught it this time.
Okay.
I never really understood. It was never fully explained, but it is shown why Ruth is the way she is. When they're walking down the street, one of the times she has a concentration camp tattoo, and I never caught that ever before.
Okay.
Ever.
Interesting.
And this time I was on the lookout for it because that small little thing completely explains her character.
It means everything.
Yes.
It absolutely means everything. Yeah, I did happen to catch that, and that does explain who she is and where she comes from and why her lust of and love of life.
Yes. And without seeing or knowing that little detail, while it ultimately doesn't really matter the why, it just answers the question.
It does,
why.
yeah.
The only problem I really have with this movie is the very overt symbolism at the end when he drives the car, the hearse off the cliff, and then starts to play the banjo and goes off. I get it, I do. It's just a little too on the nose and hammered on the head for me. But aside from that, everything about this I absolutely love.
So I don't mind that. I agree with you. I think it's probably a little bit on the nose. I think it shows, how he's going to go off and live his life now. But I did not love that somebody who had so much love of life chose to end it. That bothered me a lot.
Yeah, and that is a big criticism of this movie is why, but it is necessary for the movie because even though she is the character your eyes are drawn to, it's not her story. It's Darryl's story.
Right, but it's a but it happens for the movie, not necessarily for the character. And I just don't see somebody like if she were to get a diagnosis, if something was going to happen, but like she is, I think, in love with this guy. They have a happy relationship, and she has just decided arbitrarily that 80 is the age. And she says it earlier in the movie, where she says, like, 80, it's perfect, perfect. 85, you're hanging around too long. But 80 in a couple of months? Like, why did she feel she had to end her life? And I wish it explored that a little bit more.
Yeah, because there is nothing wrong with her. She's in perfect health. For 80, she is phenomenal.
Yep.
But she has chosen in her head that on 80, I'm going to commit suicide. It's a good end for me. That works for me because that is entirely fitting with who she is. She is making up her mind that this is how she wants to end, and she's done pretty much everything in her life by how she wants it to be.
Yeah.
So the choice, I do get that now that she's developed this relationship and they are sleeping together. Why she would follow through with it, that could be a question, and I think that's a very valid question. I'm still fine with the fact that she goes out because that's when and how she wanted to do it.
Well, and I think it probably matches what you were saying earlier, which was I'm going to try this and I'm either going to master it or move on. It's almost you could look at her as thinking that about life. I'm going to do this, I'm going to throw everything into it, and then I'm going to move on to whatever is out there and beyond. So I think it fits what you were saying. For me, it just didn't fit as well of, I love life, I'm going to experience it all, I'm going to, have a blast while I'm here. So why end the night so early?
And an argument can be easily made that because that is the way she has lived her life, why wouldn't she keep living it until it is ripped from her, forced from her, rather than do it on her own? I see both, and I'm fine with either interpretation because I think either is valid. I don't think there's one right way or one wrong way, but the way the film did it, I don't mind.
And back to, they knew who they were. Maude had to die so Harold could live.
Yes.
Honestly, that's what it was.
Yep.
Because he will go off and live the life, I think, that as Maude taught him.
Yes, 100%.
But it made me sad because I loved her character so much, and I thought it was pointless.
Yeah. From start to finish, this is just so much fun for me every time. I giggle, I laugh, I sit there and smile at the moments, and then I usually stop it before the end because I think the end cheapens it a little bit.
That's fair, and that goes with that is a great 45-minute movie somewhere in there, in the middle. I really enjoyed that part. So and it's a fun movie, and it's dark and it's quirky and it's got a lot of humor without being a straight up comedy.
Yep.
So, and I love their performances.
Yeah.
And I can see why you would love this movie.
Again, it is 100% the Ruth Gordon show, and she, as you like to say, she understood the assignment, but even more so, she understood the assignment, she understood what was needed, she understood absolutely everything that was important to make this work. And I think in my lovely brain, when I do get optimistic about things, I think that Ruth was thinking, I understand what I need to do here, and that a lot of this is going to depend on me and my performance.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to bring everything, because I've seen her in other things where she's not nearly as good. She's not bad, but she's
Yeah.
not nearly as good.
Much quieter.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a character I think that she just fully understood from the beginning and just let herself go with it.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you also, everyone. I'm stumbling on words today. So until next time.